Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a Nobel Prize-winning idea that promised to build the perfect investment portfolio. But, and this is a big but, it came with a huge hidden flaw.
For decades, investors have been chasing the same dream. How do you squeeze out the absolute most return for the least amount of risk possible? It's the holy grail of investing, right?
Well, back in the 1950s, this economist, Harry Markowitz, steps onto the scene. And he's got this totally revolutionary mathematical answer to that exact puzzle.
He called it mean variance optimization, or MVO for short. And what it is basically a mathematical recipe for how to spread your money across different risky investments. The mean part, that's just your expected return. The variance, well, that's your risk.
The whole point of this thing is to find what's called the efficient frontier. It's that sweet spot, that perfect curve where you've maxed out your returns for a certain level of risk. You literally can't get any better without taking on more danger. It's the mathematical promised land.
And man, this thing took off. It became huge. We're talking international equity managers, big institutional investors. Pretty much everyone started using it. It became the gold standard for building what they hoped were absolutely perfect portfolios.
So it all sounds amazing, right? Like we finally found the mathematical secret to investing. But there was a catch. A big one. There was a really serious problem lurking just under the hood of this beautiful theory. All right, let's pull back the curtain and talk about that problem. Because this is where the clean, perfect theory runs headfirst into messy, complicated reality. Here's the deal. The model is super sensitive. It's like a finely tuned instrument. If you're off by just a little bit with your inputs, say your guess about future returns is slightly wrong, the model can just blow it up, magnifying that tiny mistake into a massive, wildly different, and frankly, unstable portfolio.
In fact, some critics have a really harsh name for it. They call it an error maximizer. Think about that for a second. Instead of minimizing your risk, it can actually maximize the impact of any mistakes in your data. It takes a small error and makes it a big, big problem.
And this is where it gets kind of crazy. It turns out that a super simple, almost naive strategy, like just dividing your money equally among all your assets, can sometimes work better. Yep, you heard that right. It can get you closer to the real best portfolio than the super complex Nobel Prize-winning model.
So, what do? If the original model has this massive flaw, do you just toss the whole thing in the trash? Well, not exactly. The thinking shifted from let's throw it out to let's fix it.
The way to fix it really boils down to three main steps. First, you've got to admit there's an overfitting problem. That just means the model gets way too obsessed with past data and can't handle the future. Second, you bring in better, more advanced stats to clean up those input errors we talked about. And third, you change the goal. Instead of a perfect portfolio, you aim for one that's just more robust, one that won't shatter if you look at it wrong.
So, the key takeaway here is that nobody's abandoning this core idea. Not at all. They're just making it better. They're layering on new tools to take Markowitz's brilliant theory and make it actually work in our real, unpredictable world.
Okay, so that's a lot of theory. What does this actually mean for investors today? Let's tie it all together and see what the takeaway is. The big lesson really is this. Mean variance optimization is still an incredibly important tool. It's foundational. But just plugging in numbers isn't enough. The real magic, the real wisdom, comes from knowing its weaknesses, knowing where it can fail, and building your strategy around that.
And that's a huge mental shift, right? We're not chasing some mythical, perfect portfolio that only looks good on paper. No, the goal is to build something tough, something resilient, something that can take a punch from the real world with all its uncertainty and errors.
And that leaves us with one final question to think about. What's the real goal here? Is it perfection or is it robustness? Perhaps the best portfolio isn't the one that's perfect in theory, but the one that's built to survive and even thrive in an imperfect and always uncertain future.